Welcome to today's lecture. Today we are going to discuss antihypertensive drugs. Antihypertensive drugs. Antihypertensive uh, agents or drugs they act to reduce blood pressure and are used in the treatment of hypertension. Uh, Hypertension is just a disorder characterized by elevated systolic blood pressure and diastolic blood pressure. So in the current as hypertension, meaning that the systolic blood pressure is above uh, 140. A normal systolic pressure should be between 100 to 140. Then the diastolic should be between 50 to 90. So when the diastolic is above 90, it's hypertension. Then when the systolic is above 140, it's hypertension. So hypertension is in two categories: essential hypertension or primary hypertension, and also secondary hypertension. So primary hypertension it accounts for 95% of all hypertension cases. Then secondary hypertension comes as a result of other diseases. It accounts for 4%. Initial treatment in treatment of underlying disorders sometimes cure secondary hypertension. So if you treat all those conditions which are contributing to uh, secondary hypertension, you are curing hypertension. So that's all about secondary hypertension. Then uncontrolled hypertension can lead to hypertensive crisis or malignant hypertension, and malignant hypertension, which is characterized by systolic pressure of above 140. When the systolic pressure goes above 140, it becomes hypertensive crisis or malignant hypertension. Aims in the treatment of hypertension: the first aim is to maintain the blood pressure. The second aim is to prevent complications due to hypertension, and the third aim is to prevent death. So before we look at the drugs used in the treatment of hypertension, it's important to look at the non-pharmacological therapy in the treatment of hypertension. Before you initiate a client on treatment of hypertension, first you need to get them on the non-pharmacological therapy or treatment. If it doesn't work out, is when you can start putting a client down on treatment. So the non-pharmacological treatment of hypertension begin with we have lifestyle changes, like you tell a client stop smoking. Smoking cigarette contains nicotine. Nicotine is a substance which in uh, substance which constricts uh, the blood vessel. So when the blood vessel is constricted, it can lead to hypertension. So you tell the client to stop smoking. The other lifestyle modification you can do is you advise the client to reduce the intake of alcohol. The other lifestyle modification is reduction in weight. So you can advise the patient to reduce weight. The other means you can reduce hypertension is to make yourself happy at all. So advise the patient to be happy most of the time. Also, it helps in non-pharmacological treatment of hypertension. And also exercises. To do regular exercises is important, like jogging, but should avoid vigorous exercises. And also on that avoid and reduction on that. On that, you should avoid and reduce on direct salt intake. Salt intake is not good because salt is not good because it leads to absorption of fluids, which can also lead to increase in blood pressure, causing hypertension. And also avoid eating a lot of food containing a lot of oil food such as uh, nice food which contains a lot of oil such as Angry and KFC. Should reduce that. You should not take it as a habit of eating them daily. Uh, Drug treatment of hypertension. Now we're going to look at drug treatment of hypertension. So about four categories of antihypertensive drugs: diuretics, the ACE inhibitors, vasodilators, and also sympathetic uh, agents. Sympathetic agents. So we are going to start with the sympathetic agents. So this drugs work by uh, inhibiting or blocking the motor and secretory action of the sympathetic nervous system. So it inhibits or block the motor, the secretory action of the sympathetic nervous system. They are classified according to their site of action. That's why the word sympathetic uh, agent nervous agent comes from. So we have the central acting sympathetic nervous agents or inhibitors. Metidopa is one of the common drugs, the one which I'm going to discuss in this category. Metidopa comes as a tablet of 250 milligrams or 500 milligrams. The tablet mode of action of metidopa is that they act by inhibiting stimulation of the sympathetic nervous system. So the sympathetic nervous system will be inhibited or blocking of the stimulation of the sympathetic nervous system. Uses or indication, this drug is good in hypertension in pregnant. So it's a drug of choice in hypertension in pregnant. So if you see pregnant women, then give them this drug. Methadone is a good drug in pregnant women. Dose is 250 to 500 milligrams 2 to 3 times daily. You can increase gradually to 3 milligrams. Side effects of methadone is foster hypertension, dry mouth, GIT disturbances, stomatitis, bradycardia, impotence, uh, Parkinsonism, where a client that is having tremors, and also impotence, you know what impotence is, stomatitis, inflammation in the mouth. So these are some of the side effects of methadone. And also dry mouth, a client to complain of the dry mouth. So we are going to look at another category in the sympathetic nervous system. You have the beta blockers. These are the common drugs, the atenolol, propranolol, idolo, temolo. All these drugs contains law. They are beta blockers. So we'll discuss propranolol. Propranolol, it comes as a tablet of 40 milligrams. The indication is hypertension or uses is hypertension. Dose is 20 to 80 milligrams twice daily. You can increase gradually to the maximum 640 per day. In children, it's 1 to 4 milligrams per kg body. Kg body is gradually divided into doses. Side effects is bradycardia, hypotension, uh, depression, bronchospasm. So this drug causes bronchospasm. It's not a good drug in somebody that has asthma. Also thrombocytopenia. It reduces the platelet levels in the body. Insomnia is one of them. Hallucination is one of them. So it's important to give this drug during the day, because if you give it at night, the client is going to have insomnia. The insomnia will worsen. The client is going to have insomnia. There's dry mouth. There's also hallucination. So those are some of the side effects of propranolol. So now we are looking at the alpha adrenergic blocking agent. So doxazosine, parizosine, telazosin. These are some of the drugs in this category, the alpha adrenergic blocking agent. So we'll look at parizosine hydrochloride. So indication is hypertension. Dose is 0.5 to 1 grams per oral one BID or TDS or TID. For maintenance dose, you can increase to 6 milligrams to 15 milligrams daily in divided doses. Side effects is orthostatic uh, hypotension, first dose, causes angina attack, palpitation, and inbound tachycardia. There's also a combination of both the alpha and the beta adrenergic agents. The labetalol and these drugs are a combination of both the alpha and the beta adrenergic agents. So making application in general of all these drugs, the sympathetic agents, you obtain baseline data before giving these drugs. You assess the blood pressure, the pulse in a sitting and also supine position. You can monitor and record the blood pressure and pulse when starting therapy before giving each drug and during the peak, during the concentration. You monitor the patient's vitals as instructed. For example, expect to monitor blood pressure every 15 minutes. for the first 2 hours during the initial treatment, initial administration. Also, you monitor the serum electrolyte levels and correct any imbalances as prescribed. So we can look at another category now, the vasodilating agent. The vasodilating agents, there are two in this category, direct vasodilators and also calcium channel blockers. Calcium. These they act by decreasing the systolic and diastolic blood pressure by relaxing the systolic blood pressure, leading to arterial dilatation and decreased peripheral resistance. What usually happens when uh, someone is given this drug, they relax the blood vessels. They relax the smooth muscles of blood vessels, thereby reducing the blood pressure. The direct vasodilator, we're going to look at hydrazine. It's the most common drug in this category, and it's the most common drug you can find in the hospital. Hydrazine, some of you maybe have given it before, or you've seen someone giving this drug, hydrazine. It acts on arteries, veins by both causing relaxation of the arterial blood muscles, leading to arterial dilatation and decreased peripheral resistance. They act on arteries, veins, or both by causing relaxation of the arterial blood pressure, leading to arterial dilatation and decreased peripheral resistance. So hydrazine indication, you give it to moderate to severe hypertension, moderate and severe hypertension, moderate and severe hypertension. Dose is 40 milligrams per oral in divided dose for the first 2 to 4 days. You can increase to 100 milligrams for the rest of the week. Then 200 milligrams divided dose up to the maximum of 300 milligrams in 4 divided doses. So this drug you gave it 40 milligrams in daily divided dose of 2 to 4 days. So you give it in moderate to severe hypertension. So in the hypertension is between moderate to severe, you can give hydrazine. Side effect is palpitations. The current complaint of palpitation, there's tachycardia, there's tremors, there's lacrimination, breast tenderness, constipation. So then we would advise the patient to eat food rich in fibers and also fluids. We have facial flushing, we have shortness of breath, orthostatic hypotension is there. So these are some of the side effects of this drug. So when you are giving this drug, you should explain the side effects to the patient, and also you should pay attention to the side effects. Next thing, application of hydrazine, open baseline data. You do blood pressure pulse before giving the medication, and also during the medication, you can do that. You monitor the blood pressure and pulse every 5 minutes for the first 30 minutes. So for the first 30 minutes after giving this medication, you need to be monitoring blood pressure every 5 minutes. And in 2 hours, you monitor. After 30 minutes, in 2 hours, you can now monitor every 15 minutes. Every 15 minutes. After each dose is given, the blood pressure stabilizes. Blood pressure stabilizes. Monitor for signs of cerebral ischemia. So a current may present with cerebral ischemia and impaired renal blood flow. So you monitor for that. These signs are most likely to occur when vasodilator admission causes rapid reduction in blood pressure. So you can also monitor if any signs appears, help the patient to sit in supine position. So when the signs of cerebral ischemia appears, we help the patient to sit in supine position, and also elevate the patient's legs. Elevate the patient's legs and notify the doctor immediately. So you elevate the patient's legs and also you help the patient sit in supine position. You now can call the doctor. Hydrazine should not be administered with food because it increases the plasma concentration. So you should make sure that you don't allow a patient to eat during this because it increases the plasma concentration levels. And also ask the patient to report headache, angina pain, and muscle cramps. So you can tell the patient if you feel any headache or you feel any angina pain or muscle cramps, you can notify me So that's what you should look out for. Then we're going to look at now the calcium channel blockers. Calcium channel blockers, we're talking about nifedipine. These we're going to discuss nifedipine in this category because the most common drug in this category. Nifedipine comes as a tablet of 20 milligrams each. Nifedipine produces a period saturation by preventing the entry of calcium in the cell. That would reduce the mechanism action of the vascular smooth muscle. So when a client is given nifedipine, what it does is just it inhibits uh, calcium to enter the cell when you do a recap of action potential and the membrane potential. It inhibits the cells from potassium from entering the cell. When calcium is inhibited, it leads to relaxation of the smooth muscles, thereby reducing the blood pressure. Side effects of nifedipine is headache. Headaches there's hypotension, there's bradycardia, there's also peripheral edema. So you should look out for edema of the extremities, the legs, the hand. You should monitor for signs of edema. Dose of the nifedipine is 10 to 50 milligrams daily, increased to the maximum of 120 daily if necessary. Making application, monitor patients for orthopedic hypotension, and also teach the patient how to manage it. Prevent orthostatic hypotension by keeping the patient in supine position for 15 to 30 minutes. Let's look at now the ACE inhibitors, the angiotensin converting enzyme inhibitors. Another pill, captopril. These are the drugs you've seen before. Some of you have given them. These reduce blood pressure by interrupting renin angiotensin addressing system. So examples of these drugs are another pill and also captopril and the rest. So we're going to look at another pill. Another pill comes as a tablet of 5 milligrams, 10 milligrams, and 20 milligrams. Indication is hypertension or uses amplification, one and the same. Dose is 5 milligrams once daily, which is gradually increased to the maximum of 40 milligrams. Side effects is hypotension, resistance, dry cough, for proteinuria, and also there's elevation of blood urea nitrogen and creatinine levels. So those are some of the side effects. Resistance, dry cough, proteinuria is where there's increase in urine, the increase in protein in urine, and also you discover that there's also, when you do a creatinine clearance test, you discover there's an increase in blood urea nitrogen in urine. And again, when you do you side effects is hypotension, so you need to monitor also hypotension. So nursing application or implementation, some of the things you monitor for the nurse. Observe for any signs of angioedema such as scratching, pallor, swelling of the face. So when a client is taking this drug, you should monitor for swelling of the face, extremities, lip, tongue. So if you see this, you can discontinue the drug and also uh, begin immediate treatment as prescribed. Also, obtain baseline blood pressure and pulse rate before beginning the ACE inhibitor therapy. Now, we've looked at the ACE inhibitors. We're going to look at diuretic agents. These drugs, the diuretic agents, common drugs you find in the hospitals, and what they usually do is they just increase urine volume and maximize excretion of solid and water. So when the client is given diuretics, they frequently go to the toilet. So it's important when the client is taking this medication to, it's important to give this medication during the day, because if you give them at night, the client will be frequently going to the toilet, so it's going to have a disturbed sleep pattern. So you should give these drugs in the morning. So there are 5 types of diuretics. So there's thiazides and thiazide-like diuretics. These they inhibit sodium reabsorption, thereby increasing sodium and water excretion. So after they inhibit sodium, sodium is responsible for absorption of fluids. So when it's inhibited, it's going to lead to excretion of water. And also, that's what usually is done. So we look at the thiazide and thiazide-like diuretics, as we mentioned. So the increased excretion of chloride, potassium, and bicarbonate ions, which can result in excretion in electrolyte imbalance, particularly causing hypokalemia. So what usually happens when the client is given this medication, since the thiazide and thiazide like diuretics leads to excretion of sodium, chloride, and also bicarbonate ions. So you can give the client supplements like potassium supplements and also chloride supplements so that you replace the lost electrolyte. So we are going to look at benzothiazide and or chlorothiazide. These are the most also hydrochlorothiazide, benhydrochlorothiazide, thiazide, chlorothiazide, and also methylchlorothiazide. So we just look at one in this category, and these are also examples of thiazide and thiazide like diuretics. So the mode of action of this drug, these interfere with transport of sodium ions across the renal tubular epithelium as a cortical diuretic segment of the nephron. Indication may be used alone or in combination with other drugs to treat hypertension. So these drugs can be used alone or in combination with other drugs in the treatment of hypertension. Although their antihypertensive effect may begin within 3 to 4 days after giving this drug, the drugs are most effective after 3 to 4 weeks of continuous therapy. So these drugs, they don't show their effects there and then. So you can give these drugs, but they'll start working properly after. They'll start showing their effects after 3 to 4 days, and they'll be very effective after some weeks. So these drugs are also important in the treatment of hypertension. So they also use in the not just they are used in the treatment of hypertension. These drugs can also be used in the treatment of edema associated with mild to moderate heart failure. So when the client has edema, you can give these drugs, and also when the client has moderate heart failure, you can also give these drugs. So benhydrochloride, benhydrochloride 5 milligrams tablet. Indication is hypertension, edema, and mild to moderate heart failure, as I mentioned. Side effect is hypokalemia. There's also hypotension, there's gout, there's hyponatremia, hypomagnesia, and also hypercalcemia. So what usually happens is there's hyponatremia, there's also hypomagnesia, so there's reduction in magnesium levels, and also there's hypercalcemia. Calcium becomes very high in this when you can't just taking this medication. Dose is 2.55 milligrams daily in hypertension. So again, when somebody has edema, you can give 5 to 10 milligrams daily in the morning treatment of edema. So it's better you give this drug in the morning because this drug, as I mentioned earlier, that when the client is taking this drug, he frequently goes to the toilet, he goes to urinate. So it's better you give in the morning so that the patient can rest, during the night. Nursing application, be alert in patients with serum sodium and potassium levels. So those are problems, potassium and also sodium levels, you observe. Also observe for signs of hyponatremia, such as anxiety. So when a client has hyponatremia, they have too much anxiety. So you make sure that you observe for that. There's also hypotension and nausea. You observe for that. You observe for that. There's also hypokalemia. When a client has hypokalemia, they show some signs of drowsiness and also muscle cramps. So you can also observe for that. So there's also dyslexia, and also the reflexing affect it will be affected. The reflex will be affected. Also, there's also those will be affected. The other things we should monitor when the client is taking this drug is you administer potassium supplements because there's loss of potassium. So you give potassium supplements to replace those lost You can administer normal saline in replacement of that because they're going to collect all those lost fluids, lost electrolytes. Monitor for blood glucose levels in diabetic patients or one long-term treatment with STARS. So you can also monitor to because they can cause glucose intolerance. So you also monitor that. You can administer the diuretics in the morning or early morning to prevent the upsetting of the patient normal sleep pattern. Because if you monitor at night, the client will be going frequent to the toilet, so the sleep pattern will be distorted or disturbed. So it's better to give in the morning to allow the patient to frequently go to have a normal sleep pattern. The loop or high sodium diuretics. The common drug in this category is furosemide. Common drugs in this category is furosemide. So we'll discuss furosemide. So what usually happens when somebody is taking the loop or high sodium diuretics, they inhibit sodium and chloride reabsorption. So sodium and chloride absorption will be inhibited. So when they are inhibited, when sodium and chloride are being inhibited, it will lead to uh, reduction of the blood pressure. So furosemide comes as a tablet of 40 milligrams and injection of 22 or 22 22 kilomeals. So it comes as a tablet of 40 milligrams and injection of 20 milligrams per 2 meals. Indication is resistance hypertension and also edema. So you can give this drug when somebody has resistance hypertension and also edema. So when a client has resistance hypertension and also edema, you can give this drug furosemide. Dose in resistance hypertension is 40 milligrams to 80 milligrams daily, and also in resistance edema is 80 to 120 milligrams daily. 80 to 120 milligrams daily. Side effects is also static hypotension, hypokalemia, hypochloremia, hyperuresia, impaired glucose intolerance, transit deafness, and also there's abdominal discomfort. Tinnitus is one of them. Tinnitus. There's also hypersensitivity reaction. So, nursing implementation or action, you administer potassium supplements as prescribed to maintain and accept the serum levels. You can also monitor blood glucose levels in diabetic patients during the long-term treatment, as I mentioned, and also you administer diuretics in the morning or early afternoon so that you don't affect the sleep pattern of the patient. Be alert in patients' sodium and potassium levels. As we mentioned, look out for the signs of hyponatremia, such as anxiety, also hypotension, hypokalemia, such as drowsiness, muscle cramps, uh, hyporeflex, or that you should monitor. Monitor the patient's sign of dehydration, such as poor skin tag, dry oral mucosa membranes. You monitor that. Check for the vitals to detect any signs of hypovolemia, such as tachycardia, hypotension, and notify the doctor. Actually record the patient's fluid intake and output. This is very important to avoid the complications. So you monitor if if extreme discrepancy occurs, notify the physicians and expect to decrease the diuretic dose. So you should monitor uh, the patient's fluid intake and output and giving this drug to a patient. Okay, we're going to look at now potassium sparing diuretics. Potassium sparing diuretics. So these drugs, they have a weak diuretic and antihypertensive effect than any other diuretic, but they have the advantages of conserving potassium. So they are called potassium sparing drugs because they conserve potassium. Phenolactone is a common drug in this article, and they're going to look at it. So the these act on the distal renal tubings to produce mild, moderate, and hypertensive effects that increases the urine secretion of sodium chloride, calcium ions, and reduces the secretion of potassium hydrochloride ions. The effect leads to increase in potassium levels and urine output. Phenolactone are also they are used in this study. So phenolactone, as I said, phenolactone is phenolactone tablet. Phenolactone tablet indication is like edema. When a client has edema, you can give this medication. Diuretics induce hypokalemia. When hypokalemia has come due to taking of diuretics, you can give this drug. Liver cirrhosis. Liver cirrhosis is the condition which is characterized by uh, excessive intake of alcohol, where the liver is affected, and so you can give this drug. Also in nephrotic syndrome, you can give this drug, and also in hypertension. So those are some of the indication or uses of phenolactone. As you can see, it has so many uses, and it's a must-know drug. Dose is 25 milligrams daily. That's a single divided dose. Side effects: hyperkalemia, megaloblastic anemia, also static hypotension, headache, muscle cramps, gynecomastia in males. So you discover that the male is developing breast because of this drug. Menstrual abnormalities in females, they are going to have a disturbed menstrual pattern. There's diarrhea, there's also breast soreness. So those are some of the things you should look out for. So in males, you discover they develop breast, so you should pay attention to the side effects. There's also megaloblastic anemia and also hyperkalemia. There's too much potassium in the body, which is also not good. So you should also monitor that. And also abdominal cramp, you should also monitor that. Nursing application: monitor patients for signs and symptoms of hyperkalemia, such as confusion, hyperexcitability, muscle weaknesses, flaccid paralysis, arrhythmias, abdominal distension. Store phenolactone in high light resistance containers. So when it comes to the next, you need to store this drug in a light resistant container, so it should not be exposed to light. Administer phenolactone in the morning, early afternoon if possible, to prevent noturia, excessive urinating. Okay, we are going to look at now the fourth diuretics, the osmotic diuretics. Osmotic diuretics are used because it is effective in patients with compromised renal circulatory system. When the gland has compromised circulatory system, you can give osmotic diuretics. The mannitol is one of them. This acts by increasing the osmolarity of the plasma and also the glomerular filtration and tubular fluids. This decreases the reabsorption of fluids and the electrolytes, which increases the excretion of water, chloride, and sodium, and try to increase the excretion of potassium. So that's how these drugs work. So indication of the osmotic agents or diuretics: reduce intracranial and ocular pressure. We are talking about the pressure in the eyes. These drugs are used when they're also used in the treatment of glaucoma. As you go ahead in surgery, you learn about glaucoma. So mannitol is a drug which is used in the treatment of glaucoma because it reduces intracranial pressure and also intraocular pressure. The pressure in the eyes is also reduced. And also they are used to prevent acid reflux. When a client has acid reflux, you can give them this drug. And also the mannitol is very effective in patients with compromised renal circulatory. So the client has compromised renal circulatory, you can give them this drug. Dose is 0.5 to 2 grams per kg body weight IV over 30 minutes, 30 to 60 minutes infusion. So when you give this drug, you need to wait for 30 to 50 minutes. Side effects: transit tension of plasma volume, infusion, electrolyte imbalance, the volume depreciation, cellular dysfunction, cellular dehydration, headache, rebound, increase in intracranial pressure, angina like chest pain, face and blood vision. Frequent is going to be face and the going to have blood vision. The vision will be affected, won't be seen clearly. Nursing application: document the patient's food intake and output. Uh, do not administer crystalline medication. Store melatonin at 15 to 18 degrees Celsius, unless otherwise. That's where you should put these fluids. So you have also carbonic anhydrase inhibitors. Carbonic anhydrase inhibitors, these are used to induce dialysis. So these drugs are used to induce dialysis. So we have acetanozolamide, zolamide, diclofenomide, methazolamide. They are primarily used to decrease the formation of aqueous humors by the cellular bodies and therefore can control the excessive intracranial pressure created with glaucoma. So in a client has glaucoma, as I mentioned, that glaucoma, you can give them this drug because these drugs are used also in the treatment of glaucoma, and they are also used in the treatment of edema related to cardiac disorders. So when the edema is associated with cardiac disorders, you can give this drug, acetanozolamide, diclofenomide, methazolamide. They are used also in treatment of edema related to cardiovascular disorders and also periodic paralysis, and also acute mountain sickness. Thank you very much for this lecture. For any questions, you can contact me.